Today, I'm going to be teaching you the basics of Xiangling driving.
Let's go!
To start, I will cover some fundamental concepts before going over some good ways to practice. The point of driving Xiangling is to get more hits in a shorter amount of time, not only to kill the enemy faster by front-loading your damage, but also to get more hits in total. Other useful utility it provides are killing the first wave faster in combination with Childe ult in order to save Childe's E stance for the second wave while not sacrificing too much Pyronado uptime and faster shield breaking. There are many different methods to get more hits in a shorter amount of time, the most widely known being backpedaling, which I will explain first. Backpedaling is the simplest to perform since there aren't any strict timings. Just dash to the right or counterclockwise around the enemy with your dash cancels. Never do the exact opposite because it makes the Pyronado take more time to hit the enemy. Backpedaling is generally only utilized in situations where there are multiple enemies and it is difficult to get double hits. It is important to pan your camera to the left, otherwise it gets confusing when there are already so many things to pay attention to. By keeping the enemy centered on your screen, you can keep your movement keys constant without having to think. Having good movement is crucial to maintaining good positioning in order to keep enemies grouped. Always try to dash to a place where Childe's charge attack knocks all of the enemies in the same direction. Otherwise, they will become ungrouped. If you're not in the right place, do normals instead of a charged attack to reset. Jumping to backpedal is used to save stamina or when there's a dash cooldown. Now onto double hit, the technique that is used most of the time. There are actually a couple different methods within this technique, differing based on hitbox size and situation. Against enemies that have large hitboxes like bosses, the Pyronado stays in the hitbox for long enough that the game registers it as 2 hits. In this case, just focus on Childe N2C cancels. Next, the technique for enemies that have a large hitbox, but not large enough to register 2 hits without extra movement. For the utility I mentioned earlier to kill the first wave faster without Childe E, you walk to the left to make the Pyronado stay in the hitbox for longer. Once you get that timing down, you can walk left, then right to combine double hit and backpedaling. When driving Xiangling in Childe's E stance, you dash to the left or clockwise at a certain timing to keep the Pyronado in the hitbox for long enough to get the double hit or bring the Pyronado back to hit again. So there's a bit of leeway in terms of timing the dash. You want to keep the movement as small as possible to reduce the amount of Pyronado loss. Let me walk you through this step by step. So step number 1, you do your N2C. Step 2, use your dash cancel to dash to the left or northwest at the correct timing using AW and your preferred sprint keys. 3, pan your camera to the right to keep the enemy centered. 4, repeat. You might be wondering, how do I find the right timing to dash? Keeping Pyronado in the hitbox means you dash earlier when the Pyronado is approaching the enemy. Bringing it back to hit again means you dash later when the Pyronado is on the other side of the enemy relative to you. The best way to find the right timing is just through practice with trial and error. It's more just muscle memory. N2CD is the perfect timing to get the double hit, so the first double hit is the most important since once you get into the groove, the rhythm lines up perfectly. The last way is by jumping to the left, which can save a lot of stamina paired with normals. Always try to keep your movement as circular and close to the enemy as possible. Against enemies that get knocked back by Childe's charge attack, it is better to do normals instead. Of course, the enemy attack pattern will not always line up with when you want to dash for your double hit, which is where you have to compromise either by dashing earlier to backpedal or later for the double hit. After you have mastered double hit, it is time to learn the double hit jiggle, essentially triple hit but easier to perform. Double hit jiggle combines double hit with backpedaling, where you alternate between double hit and backpedaling. One of the main issues you may face is hitting the dash cooldown, but you can do a pogo double hit to compensate. So now for the final boss of Xiangling driving, the triple hit. Triple hit is not really necessary, but it sure is fun to do. It's a new technique you will have to practice, but you basically just get 2 double hits in close proximity. Step by step. 1. N2C. 2. Use your dash cancel to dash to the left or northwest at the correct timing using AW and your preferred sprint keys. 3. Pan camera to the right to keep the enemy centered. 4. Do 1 normal attack on CHILDE. 5. Dash to the left to get your second double hit. 6. Pan your camera to the right to keep the enemy centered. 7. Repeat. After your second double hit, you'll run into the dash cooldown, which is where the Penta Hit comes in. Penta Hit adds a jumping double hit after your triple hit. The steps are the same as a triple hit, except after you get your second double hit, you do 2 normals into a charge attack on CHILDE, and you use a jump to the left to cancel the charge attack and get a double hit. And you just repeat this process. There will always be special circumstances with different abysses which have their own tech. The most recent example being the dendro balls, where jump cancels are done to keep the balls grouped for longer while still staggering them. So how to practice? In the future, if they ever release a sandbox mode, that would probably be the best option for practicing, but for now I recommend going into the top half of Abyss to practice, especially after they added the quality of life change to reset all cooldowns. It's less disruptive to your flow and allows for more runs in a session. Find a good enemy for practicing whichever specific skill you want to learn in Xiangling ult. Then just start driving on CHILDE. A general tip I have for learning these techniques is to break it down and add layers as you get better so you can isolate different aspects. For example, while learning double hit, the most difficult part at first is the dash timing. I would ignore everything else and focus on the dash timing. Do some normals if needed to stay close to the enemy and just get the right timing down through trial and error. Once you're consistent with the timing, you can add on panning your camera as well as N2Cs and so on. This method of practicing is more noticeable when learning Penta Hit. It's much easier to perform the triple hit when doing normals. So I would start with learning the triple hit timings with normals first, then slowly adding on the jumping double hit. Panning your camera is much more important in triple hit to stay oriented and have good movement, so it's a good habit to build up if you want to learn it. One more way to practice is passively, just by doing the triple hit while doing your daily artifact runs or when you're out in the overworld farming mobs. Anyway, that's all I have for this driving guide. Congrats on graduating from the Xiangling Driving Academy. I hope it helped you out, and if you have any problems, please leave them in the comments.